Where do I start? Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This is the second of our Zero Waste Initiative webinars. I'm Kathy Cook. I'm the Environmental Policy Director for the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania. And I'd like to introduce Karen Tussick-Lux. She's the grant writer for Media Pennsylvania, and she worked with the Borough and the Borough's EAC, Town Council, and staff to plan and create a 3-year resident food compost project, which and this pilot project was then expanded, and now they have a food and yard waste curbside compost project or program, and she's going to talk to us about that tonight. After her presentation, we will take questions and answers, and please put your questions in the chat so that I can refer back to them and we can make sure that we have all the questions answered. Anyone that's attending this meeting tonight and those that have registered will receive a recording of the meeting tonight. So Karen, please talk to us about curbside composting.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Hello, I'm very happy to be here tonight. And now I'm going to share my screen and show you the PowerPoint. And just want to, okay. So our composting program is called Curbside Compost, and I will get into later in the presentation about exactly what that all encompasses. But I just want to say that Media Borough is a small municipality under 6,000 in population with a very small staff, no sustainability officer, and no planning department. But we have a powerful environmental advisory council. We have a powerful citizens group, Transition Town Media, and we have an amazing environmentalist citizenry that elects thoughtful and effective council leaders who support environmental initiatives such as Media's Curbside Compost program. So there are many, many ways to do a municipal compost program. I'm going to tell you how we did it, but don't feel like you'd have to do it exactly like us, because every municipality is different. You've got different situations, and you've really got to look at what you have and how you can fit it in. But I am going to tell you how we did it. And basically, this probably would pertain to any municipality. We started with a collection of grounded, pragmatic, and persistent people. So the idea popped up a few years ago, well, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer. It was a recurring topic of discussion at Environmental Advisory Council meetings. And somebody would say, hey, why don't we do this? And somebody else would say, that's a great idea, but nothing ever really happened. But our liaison on council, Amy Johnson, council member Amy Johnson, and her second election campaign, she asked the question when she went from house to house, would people be interested in a compost program? And she got an overwhelming response. Yes, we'd love to have this here. So when she was elected, she just took that as her mandate. And she, said, let's do this. And so our group started with the EAC. Transition Town Media is a local citizens group that is all about creating a resilient, a resilient community. We drew in a few other community members, and a committee was formed. So the pilot committee, we did 3 years of a pilot before we went borough-wide. And as I said, Amy Johnson really headed this group. Addie Chinella was of the EAC. She was usually the one that would say, hey, why don't we do a compost program? Shari Stuber with Transition Town Media was incredibly instrumental in making it happen, as was Martin Pepper, Risa Thomason, Chris Peretti is the owner of Kitchen Harvest Compost Farm. And so he is not only, the person that takes our compost, but he was also very, very helpful with our pilot program and really guided us. It helped us, not go wrong. Jack Doyle and his daughter Morgan Doyle, both Borough residents, were very, very helpful and effective on the committee. So these people had a very, very thoughtful, they came from a wide range of experience, and they had a wide range of resources to draw from. And it was a great committee. So the funding for the program, I also wanted to mention, I'm going to back up. So how did we do this? We met at 7 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes we met every week, sometimes twice a month, sometimes once a month. And it took maybe a year of planning before we launched the pilot program. And we did a lot of research. We got council backing. Amy was able to secure the backing of council and the support of it. And that enabled them to bring me onto the committee. I am a staff member of the borough. So that's kind of the bones of how it got going. But once council committed, they were willing to fund the pilot, and our first year was funded entirely from our general fund. We did get technical assistance from the Department of Environmental Protection from the state. And they have a technical assistance program that you can ask for help. And they hired a group of environmental engineers to work with us to create a survey. And we selected 5 small Northeast US municipalities that had launched compost programs. And the engineering company that was helping us, they called, these municipalities and asked them the same set of questions. It's a very interesting document, and it is available on our website. And don't really have, maybe I can get the link for you.
I can put it in the chat as well.
Okay. Maybe at the end, I'll try to get these links together and put them in the chat. But that's really worth looking at, because each of those municipalities approached it in different ways. And, for instance, media, we were able to incorporate it into our public works program. Other towns, the residents pay for the service, and the towns oversee it in various ways. But so it's really worth looking at. So this is our budget for year 1. We budgeted $34,000. We spent $22,000. We started with 100 participants. And what we did is we sent out a survey through our website to gauge interest. And Amy had a pretty good idea from people she'd spoken with during the campaign. So she probably reached out to them, but we also were able to reach a lot of people through the website and the survey. And it turned out there was quite a lot of interest and support. And then we had the context from the survey when we wanted to start the pilot and get people signed up. We had, so we used our website, we used direct emails, and we used word of mouth. About the same time, maybe a little after the launch of the pilot, we started an e-newsletter, which really allows us to reach lots more people than we did before this. So that came into play later in the pilot and the borough-wide rollout. We created a Google Sheet for pilot contact info. We started a MailChimp newsletter just for the participants to just keep them informed. And we were able to, once we had all our 100, it didn't take long to get the first 100. We set up a map for Chris for his pickup locations. And before we launched, everyone was required to come to a workshop. It was short. It was led by Chris and Amy. They're very good speakers, very entertaining, and everybody got to meet each other, which was really fun for everybody. It really, created kind of an esprit de corps, and people felt like they were all in this together. We also created an informational flyer that I'll show you. I think it's the next slide, and we also, as the pilot began, we started an FAQ, a FAQ, and that was really super helpful. Midway through the first year, we did a survey to see how things were going, and we had a huge participation and really 100% approval. It went very smoothly. People really loved it. So this is the flyer that people got with their buckets at the workshops at the beginning. And the workshops were a week before the pilot launch. They were magnetized, so you could hang them on your refrigerator with a very simple design. And so it went very smoothly. For year 2, we added 120 participants, so we were up to 220. We budgeted 50,000. You can see the spreadsheet here. Total cost was 47,000. And then we didn't, I don't think we really had to do a pilot year 3, but it kind of worked out that way because for several reasons. One was we started the program and it was not on the borough's fiscal year, and that became problematic. We had to get on the borough. We started in May and we're a January to December fiscal year. So we had to do at least another half year. And then we had to take a good 6 months to prep residents with communications and education. And then there was delays because of COVID. So, but I think you could easily do a 1 or 2 year pilot and still be successful. It just depends on your circumstances. So once we were at pilot year 3, approaching the end, we started an internal committee to roll out the borough-wide program. And this was another really amazing, all staff, amazing committee of very, very thoughtful, smart people from a lot of different perspectives. And each one of them helped us from going wrong in bad ways at various times. Logistics, we had to figure out how we were going to make this work, because up till now, Chris Peretti, the owner of Kitchen Harvest Compost Farm, on our committee, he had also been the person who was actually doing the physical pickup of the buckets every week. And now we were going to bring it internally. We were going to have Public Works do it, but how would we make it work? How could we afford it? Was it going to be expensive? Would we have to ask residents to pay for it? All these questions. And so one thing we considered early on was we have a two day a week trash pickup in Media, and many municipalities around us have a 1 day a week pickup. And I know of other places that have every other week pickup. So we did consider that, but it was pointed out to us by Jeff Smith, our borough manager, that it would be very difficult to launch 2 big things at the same time, that it could be very problematic to launch a compost program and change trash day from 2 to 1 day a week. And it could really, be hard for the compost program to get going. So we thought, well, how are we going to do it? Well, our former public works director handed over to a new public works director during this time, Mike Green. He was on our committee, and Mike had been working with public works for a number of years and really knew how everything worked in and out. And he came up with the idea of combining it with yard waste pickup, because now Media Borough had monthly yard waste pickup, as is mandated by the state. But in fact, our pickup day was the first Wednesday of the month. But in practice, Media Borough residents were putting their yard waste out every single day of the week. And our former public works director, who retired during this process, as I said, he hated the sight of all these yard waste bags around. So in practice, he was actually having his crew pick up yard waste every single day. And it did take a lot of time. So Mike's idea was, now that we had a newsletter in place, we were doing really well with social media communication, said, why don't we do a communication storm where we're saying, okay, guess what? We have weekly yard waste pickup now instead of monthly, but you can only put it out on Wednesday mornings. And so this was a big, charge that we led for probably almost 6 months in our newsletter. We had something about this in every issue, and we led up to the launch of the yard waste, weekly yard waste pickup. And that started in April. And then we got that going, it was working pretty well. And then we were able to add the food waste to it the following July. So, and in the meantime, through January through July, we had a steady stream of educational pieces on the value of food composting in our Media Zero Waste column, communications about the switch and how it would work, and then a stream of information on the food compost program the last 2 or 3 months. Just a steady stream of repetitive information. Our communications person, Linda Rooney, says it takes 7 repetitions of the communication for it to really take hold. So we took that to heart. And so Linda's company, Dandelions Digital, they do our newsletter, they do our website, they specialize in municipal digital communication. And Linda was on our committee. She redesigned our public works website. And this is an image of what she did. So there's a whole section on curbside composting, equal to trash collection, equal to recycling, leaf collection, hazardous household, and all this. And all kinds of information on it. And what Linda found, so part of our idea was to send out a flyer. We were going to actually snail mail a physical flyer to every resident in the borough as part of this campaign. And Linda had found, she studies the social media analytics and reports on it monthly. And she found that every single month, no variation, no question, the largest number of hits on our website was trash collection and recycling. It seems like that's all people wanted to know about. And so she said, we are crazy to create a flyer that is only about composting when what people really, really need to know about is recycling and waste. So we created the Media Borough Waste Manual. And this was our rollout document for composting. But the first page, this was a heavy stock, glossy flyer. It was 8.5 by 11. So, and each page was designed to be ripped out so that it could be taped to a refrigerator or the inside of a cupboard. And so the information would be at hand. And Linda and her group designed, instead of having a list in words of what was recyclable, what was trash, she wanted to use very simple, very easy to comprehend at a glance graphic images. So that's what we did. So we had for recycling, we have for compost, though the wordy part is the yard waste part. And then she stole Lansdowne Borough's idea for a trash and recycling pickup map. And this has been just wonderful for our residents. They just love this. So this was one of the main pieces, one of our main educational pieces, and it went out to every resident. So one of the greatest collaborations of this project was with, as I mentioned, we were talking about him at the beginning of the evening, a very talented local filmmaker who lives in media, Rich Hoffman. We were able to hire him to create an educational video for the program, Gotta Get a Bucket. And we were able to use grant funding to pay him. And I have to back up on the grant funding because for years 2 and 3, we were able to use some grant funding to pay for the educational and outreach efforts for the program. But I want to show you the video, and I think I have to stop sharing and then get into the video. So this is going to be messy for a minute. And now I'm going to share the Gotta Get a Bucket screen.
Gotta get a bucket.
Yo, Chris, what's in the yellow bucket?
What, you don't got a bucket, Chris?
Nah.
Oh, you got to get a bucket.
What's it for?
Food scraps?
Food scraps?
Yeah, for compost.
What's that?
Oh, compost, it's the greatest. I put all my food scraps in there. The borough comes and takes it away, turns it into soil.
Oh, kind of like yard waste, like big brown bags?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, it's better for the environment, and we don't send as much garbage to the incinerator.
No way.
Yeah, I only put my trash out once a week now.
Get out of here.
Here's what you do. You go get a bucket, you stick it by your trash cans, and every time you eat, you take your cooking scraps and your unwanted leftovers and you put them in there.
Whoa, every time I eat, I gotta go outside now?
Some people keep the bucket inside, or they put a sealed container on their counter and wait till it fills up.
Ain't so bad.
Yeah, I compost all the kinds of stuff that would make my garbage stink.
Yo, how about pepperoni pizza?
Nope, no meat or cheese.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, but now you take your greasy pizza boxes and put them out with your yellow compost bucket.
Nice. What else?
You can compost veggie scraps, eggshells, fruit scraps, tea bags, coffee filters, bread, grains, grass clippings, and pizza boxes, but no meat, cheese, bones, fish, or plastic. You got that?
Not really.
That's okay. They give you a reminder card to stick on your fridge until you get the hang of it.
Yo, where can I get this bucket at?
Borough Hall. You do know where Borough Hall is.
Yeah, it's around here somewhere.
Well, what are you waiting for? Go get your bucket.
Gotta get a bucket. Gotta get a bucket. Get a bucket. Get a bucket. Get a bucket. Gotta get a bucket. Get a bucket. Get a bucket. Gotta get a bucket. Gotta get a bucket.
Drug break. Oh, yeah. Let's do this.
Gotta get a bucket. Gotta get a bucket.
I got mines.
So that was the video. Now I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. And so that it was a wonderful, really, really fun collaboration. And we had all kinds of people turn out to help us make it. And Rich and the planning committee wanted to show the broadest representation of borough residents, young, old, teens, Black, white, Asian, good dancers, bad dancers. And the music for the video was done by a local musician. So we just had a lot of fun with that, and everybody did. So the cost of the borough-wide program. So as I mentioned, and probably maybe I skipped this. Yeah, I think I have a spreadsheet earlier that shows the grant funding. Let me just see if I can go back and find that, because I kind of skipped over it. Maybe I didn't. Well, anyhow, we did have a DEP 902 grant. Now, the 902 grant program is for recycling equipment and recycling education. It's a very generous program, and I urge you to look into it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here are the costs that came under the grant. We were able to pay for graphic design, website design and development, printing and mailing, the educational video, and the 600 6-gallon buckets with lids and decals. So that was about $12,000 that. Now we also, you don't have to do this, but our council chose to purchase a new compactor trash truck for the program. I'm not counting it in the cost because we could have also have used a dump truck and large, 96-gallon bins in the back of the dump truck. And actually our old, the borough does its own trash, and we always had a trash truck and a backup trash truck. We had originally intended to use the backup truck for the Compost program, but it just really got old and really was very in bad shape. And Mike, Public Works Director, said this is not going to make it. So they chose to purchase a new one. And let me just see if I missed anything here. So one of the great happinesses for me about the program was when we all realized that we could compost our pizza boxes. And we kind of realized this just as we were creating the educational materials and the outreach to the community. And it just sort of hit Chris Peretti like an epiphany. We can compost pizza boxes. So, I did a little, research. 3 billion pizza boxes are thrown in the trash every year. 40 pizzas are eaten on average per person annually in the US. So that means in media, perhaps 220,000 pizza boxes are discarded every year. That is about 45,000 pounds in weight. And no recycling facility accepts that because while they're mostly cardboard, they're saturated with cheese and grease. But as I said, Chris loves them. Cardboard is a source of carbon, which provides the microorganisms in the compost heap with the nutrients and energy they need to turn your trash into usable compost. So it's very useful for Chris. And so we could potentially be turning 22 tons of pizza boxes into rich, dark soil every year. And with that happy thought, I'm going to end my presentation and take whatever questions you have. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Karen. I think that was very interesting. I'm going to start it off with how do they separate the yard waste and the food scraps? I know you have to have a certain, recipe or mix of organics to food, and how does that happen?
That's a really good question. We don't have to separate them. We pick them up together, we mix them. They're all brought to Kitchen Harvest, the compost farm, all mixed together. And that's how Chris wants it. So I think the recipe is not so exact when you're working on a farm scale, a large compost farm scale.
Suzanne Hayes has asked, where does media compost yard waste?
Oh, that goes to Chris's Kitchen Harvest as well. The food waste and the yard waste are picked up together and they're mixed together in the truck, and they are all taken to Kitchen Harvest and they're all composted.
Are there any nearby boroughs or townships that are considering doing something like this?
I have talked to many who are, and I've heard of many who are also thinking of it. So a lot of them are. Now, the thing is, Kitchen Harvest is limited in size, and Delaware County is a fairly densely developed county. So for every municipality in the county to be able to do food composting, they've got to look at other sites, other composting sites, or other types of maybe commercial, maybe anaerobic digesting facilities for handling the compost. And I know this has been brought up in a lot of the Delaware County zero waste planning that's going on this year. I know they're thinking about it. I'm not sure what they're going to come up with, but Kitchen Harvest probably has room for a few more municipalities, but long run, another facility is going to have to be thought of.
There's a question in the Q&A from Melinda Wolf, and then there's kind of a comment echoing this from Lisa in the chat. Says my township outsources its trash and recycling to Republic Service. So the Public Works does not collect the trash and recycling. So do you have any ideas on how to circumvent that or get around that? And, Lisa added to that and adds that it also kind of comes with an extra cost. So any thoughts on how to circumvent that?
Well, I'm assuming that the municipalities also do not pick up their own yard waste. Is that right? If that's the case, see, this is how it fit for media, and it's going to fit differently for other municipalities. And that's why you really need to get your public works person in on the talks early, very early, because they're the ones who know how things work on the ground. They're the ones that are going to really be smart about, what is the best fit for your municipality. And the other thing I would say is do take a look at the study that I told you about on our website by SCS Engineering. That is a survey of 5 different small municipalities in the Northeast United States that have done this, and they all have done it in a different way. And some municipalities had just hire an outside composting person to come in, and then the residents pay a monthly fee. There are all kinds of variations on how people do it. And it just happened to fit very nicely in our situation to have Public Works do it.
There's a question from, thank you so much for your answers as I steamroll right ahead. There's a question from Keith in the chat. Is there any quality control to ensure that there aren't any unwanted materials included? How is it tested to ensure bad actors aren't contaminating supplies with potential toxins? Is a matter of compostable materials are organic or may have been coated with pesticides?
Well, the FAQ was extremely helpful, and it's like when the just to back up a little, when the pilot program started, I was the one taking calls from questions and emails with questions from people. And I was flooded the first 3 or 4 weeks with questions, emails and phone calls with questions. And every single question turned into an entry on the FAQ. And pretty soon we were very widely messaging everyone, look at the FAQ, look at the FAQ. And it's just been incredibly valuable for people to know what they can and cannot compost. There's a ton of information on it. And after the first month or 6 weeks, those questions just dwindled down to almost nothing. And then when we expanded the program, we had very few questions. Now, as far as materials that are not wanted, Chris Peretti really looks at what is brought to him, and we would definitely hear from him if he was getting stuff that wasn't working. I check in with him once in a while, but he would definitely let us know. And it's been going very, very smoothly. It's been going really, really well. He's happy with what he's getting. He's not seeing any problems. So far, so good.
Thank you so much. Just as a side note, Karen, would you be comfortable putting your email in the chat for
Yeah, sure.
follow-up? Great.
Sure, I can do that.
Suzanne Hay has a question. Do residents in media pay extra for composting? Is there an option for residents to opt out if they want to compost in their own backyard?
They don't pay for composting, and it's not a forced death march in media, and people can buy in or not buy in. Right now we have about probably close to 450 moving in on probably 450 people participating in the program. And we had a slow, rollout, and that was good. We didn't want Public Works to be overwhelmed by, having hundreds of people join at once. I'm thinking that the most we'll ever get is 750, which is, it's less than half of the households in the borough. Did that answer your question?
It's there. So that kind of leads to the answer that if residents want to be composting in their own backyard.
Yes. And so if they want to compost in their backyard, they're perfectly free to do that. And many people do.
Yeah, Sean Walsh wants to know if any participating media residents get a few extra compost buckets from.
They
being in the
can
program.
get more than one compost bucket. I think.
No,
the-
but do they get free compost back?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that was paid for by the DEP 902 grant. That pays for recycling equipment. It considered our compost program a form of recycling, paid for all of our compost buckets.
But do they get some compost back?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they do. So our first year, during the pilot program, we had, I think, 4 dumps of finished compost a year that people could come and fill their buckets with. And the first year of the Borough rollout, that was just put on hiatus for the year, but it was just re-upped again. And we're back to bringing about 10 yards of finished compost in a big pile that everybody can get to on weekends, 4 times a year. And so right now we're saying you can take 1 bucket full. We may up that. We're just going to see how far the 10 yards goes.
Right. Did Chris have to add any new personnel, and did the planning or the public works people have to add more personnel?
Chris did not add more personnel, and Public Works has not added anybody, especially for the program. They have like their normal staffing.
How many, how many people are working for Chris? Or is it just him?
I don't know. I don't know what
It
Chris
sounded
is
like it
doing.
was just him, and I was
Yeah.
thinking it probably needs to be more than that.
Yeah, I don't know, but here at Public Works, this is the thing that is that, I don't know if I made this point, but because when by changing the messaging and emphasizing, weekly yard waste only on Wednesdays. So instead of Public Works going out with a truck every single morning, picking up yard waste, they were now only going out on Wednesday and picking up food waste with their yard waste. So it was taking a little longer, but they were saving 4 mornings a week of having to go out to pick up yard waste. So I think, and I haven't crunched the numbers, that's one of my summer tasks, but I think it's going to just come out even. I don't think we'll be paying anything extra for extra labor for Public Works to do this. Or it's really Public Works hours. And I think we may even be saving Public Works hours because of that little shift that we made.
Oh, that's interesting. Does the borough also use the compost?
It's kind of in flux right. I think they are, now that we're getting it into the borough, I think they are going to start using it, but I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Mike that question. It's a good question.
Okay, let's see. Tara asks, does media pick up yard waste year round, or did they start with the food waste program?
Well, we picked up leaves in the fall, and then all other yard waste, all the 9 months. And now we're just picking up all yard waste all year round on Wednesday mornings, along with food waste.
Well, your borough is lucky in that your Public Works actually picked up yard waste and so forth. But here in Euclid Township, where I live, there's several contractors, I believe.
Yeah.
So that would be another situation where boroughs or townships would have to contract with haulers and come up with some kind of program with the haulers. And I don't think you find composters in every township. I mean, are there programs for farmers to learn how to compost?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I know other municipalities have had backyard composting workshops, but also there are, at least I can think of a couple of businesses who collect compost from households. You pay them like $14 a month or something, and they will pick up your compost weekly. One of the businesses is called Mother Compost. You can Google Mother Compost and come up with, they have a beautiful website. And they actually take the compost they pick up, they take to Kitchen Harvest. So for some municipalities I've spoken to who want to do this, but haven't figured out how to incorporate it yet, or maybe it's not going to work that way, they have been able to offer, just say there's this service available to residents who want to pay for their compost to be picked up. So I think there's just all kinds of ways of doing this, depending on what the political will is of your elected officials and your engaged citizenry. You'll have to think of what makes sense for your municipality.
Yeah, there are a variety of options out there.
Yeah.
And I would think that this would be a wonderful opportunity for area farms to get involved in learning to compost and becoming composters.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of information coming in from people that are on this call, and we've got loads of information. It says, Melinda says the beauty of what's going on in media, it did not cost the residents a single penny. She has to pay for food scrap compost programs. So not so easy to make it township wide. But I suppose if there's a lot of interest in a township and citizens push for it, that there might be some way to connect with farmers and work a program deal out.
It sounds like it's something that's not like a one size fits all
Yeah,
model. You gotta have to adapt.
right. And I was reading a lot about this, about some haulers would not be willing to do it. There are other small haulers that maybe would like to get into something like this and could be their niche. So it really depends on the township, the EACs looking into what's in their town and coming up with some creative ways to do this.
It's also, and it's also the county, the larger governmental unit, it's something that a county can take leadership on and make it easier for the municipalities to do. And I know this is something Delaware County is looking at. I don't know if Chester County is, but like providing, figuring out a site that the compost could go to, providing information on, if we had a sustainability officer in media, they could be crunching numbers and, have a whole background on the pros and cons of different ways of doing it. There's lots of possibility, but as I say, to have a good grounded committee with a, variety of resources and background, who, have done this kind of these, done municipal things before, but also to bring in a compost farmer, to bring in your public works person. And then that's the think tank. And then you also have to have the leadership from your elected officials. And none of this obviously could have happened without them. And they were, very, they're very environmentally dedicated. So
James McLaughlin has asked, has media seen a drop in total waste disposal volume through the Solid Waste Authority?
That's what I'm going to be crunching this summer. I made estimates and it based on the pilot, but I will be more comfortable working with actual borough-wide numbers. But yeah, the amount of trash, is reduced. I can't tell you how much. What I read online is that a composting program can reduce your trash going to waste by 20 to 30%. I haven't seen that from the pilot numbers, doing my estimates from the pilot numbers, it's been more like, between 16 and 20%. I haven't seen these huge numbers, but maybe that'll be different when I use the actual borough-wide numbers.
You mentioned that it was a 3-year pilot program, and you said maybe 100 people for the first year.
Mhm.
What were the things that you learned immediately from the first couple of weeks from the pilot program?
What I learned is that we really thought this out well in advance. Like hardly anything went wrong. And, and there are just lots of questions about, people were kind of puzzled about certain things and how they were working. If you read the FAQ, it's almost like a history of the project. Some of the questions at the beginning of the FAQ are kind of funny, people did and didn't understand about the program. And one of the problems we had is media. I don't know about your towns, but media is a community of very, very robust and aggressive squirrels. And in certain parts of town, they had their bucket lids attacked by squirrels. And so there were maybe 5 to 7 people the first year that had to replace it. We found these screw top lids that worked really well though, and those seemed to keep the squirrels off. So that was one of the challenges. But otherwise it just really worked well.
I can attest to active squirrels because my kayak was eaten through by squirrels.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. They seem to really be bad here in media.
Do we have any other questions? You can unmute if you'd like and ask a question.
Or if you have one, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of the webinar format.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Just say, one thing, if you do have, I'm sorry I didn't have the links already to put into the chat. And if you email me, I'll be glad to send you the links that I mentioned.
Well,
And
if you want to send them to me when I send the recording, I'll send all of
okay.
them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can
Sure.
do it that way.
Yeah, I'll do that. Mm.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions. I'm very pleased with the questions and the information. I'm going to save the chat and try to pull out the information that people have donated. And I will send out the recordings and things that Karen sends me. And I appreciate everyone for coming tonight. And Karen, you did a wonderful presentation, very helpful to all of us. And people can reach out to you and ask questions. I'm
Yes.
sure they will.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.